This episode of Invent America is brought to you by America's Inventor Lady and Home Talk USA. Home Talk is a proud member of the King Broadcasting Network and has been bringing you the best of America's home-based product innovation since 1998.
Broadcasting and streaming live all across America. This is Home Talk USA. Join us this hour for our segment Invent America with your co-host Rita Crompton. Discover what's next for new products and innovations. Or if you have that next great big idea, learn what it takes to bring your invention to the world. As Rita Crompton talked to America's inventors and innovators. Remember, the America of tomorrow is being invented today.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us for this segment of Invent America. And we do invent America because America invents. We have been doing it forever and we'll continue to do it long into the future because you know what? When somebody's got a problem, the best solution for that problem is whoever fixes it and comes up with that first gadget in their garage or backyard or wherever it is. This segment of Invent America is brought to you by Aztec Washer. It is the revolutionary and innovative roofing product since, holy cow, 1968. They've been around doing this for a long time, and it must mean that they do it the right way. So seal it right, seal it tight, aztecwasher.com, and we are grateful to have them as a sponsor for this segment. And, everybody figures, first prototype's going to be duct tape, cardboard, sometimes Legos. I've seen some really good ones out of Legos. But at a certain point, most folks have got to get in there and hire someone to help. Now, rapid prototyping has certainly changed the way prototyping gets done in this country and around the world. Still a challenge, and we are very grateful that Noah McNeely is a sponsor for Invent America, and we are very grateful to have you, Noah. But he also has a lot of inventors who have gone to him over the years. He's been doing this for a long time and recently started product Quickstart. And last year at ASD Market Week, we had some of the inventors who had used Noah and thought he was amazing. And this year we will have some inventors who are currently using Noah for their prototypes, but prototyping gets done in stages. So Noah, from the duct tape and cardboard Legos version that somebody does on their kitchen table or in their garage, where do you take over? And thank you for being with us today.
And thanks for having me. And let me just make one minor correction. It wasn't recently. It's been 10 years. It doesn't feel like 10 years ago that I started Product Quickstart, but I've been doing product development for 25 years and really focused on inventor entrepreneurs for the last 10 and startups, small companies, basically. So your question, what comes after or when do I get involved? Well, that really depends on the individual inventor. I mean, some inventors are very comfortable going into their garage and they understand it. They get, I'm going to make this rough stuff with duct tape. I know woodworking. I know this. I know that. They can get pretty far. Other inventors are like, I don't even know what kind of duct tape to buy, so I don't know where to start. So I meet people at different stages and often have to do a lot of education about what prototyping is for. And Rita, as I think you know, these duct tape level prototypes, these garage prototypes, they're all about learning what we don't know. So do we even know if the physics works? Do we even know, is the size right? If it's something that's going to go on the body, is it too big? Is it too small? So my advice is to do as much as we can as inexpensively as possible. So that's where those duct tape Home Depot style prototypes come from. And some people, like I said, I get involved. They've just got a sketch. They've just got an idea and they don't know what to do. Well, sometimes I have to educate them that the first prototype is not going to be that trade show prototype. It's going to be all this garage prototype level stuff.
Yeah, it's funny because I've seen, when I go and do like the invention convention at a school and I will see some of the things that the kids have made, and it's amazing what they can grab and use and create with just whatever they've got laying around the house. I know years ago we had early prototypes for a product done out of pipe cleaners. Mm-hmm. And, they took it off to, get the next stage done. And my pets still use Tagabiner, and it started out as pipe cleaners.
Right. Yeah. So why would you spend $1,000 on a fancy prototype to learn something you could learn for $10 worth of pipe cleaners?
Exactly. So, I always tell inventors, do your first version yourself. You can learn, duct tape, cardboard, Legos, whether or not the door should open top to bottom or left to right. The size, a lot of times it's like, you can make a miniature, but, I had one couple, it was years ago, and they said, well, we've got this cool new thing that's going to sit on the bed. And it's really, and I said, did you figure out how it was going to stay on the bed? And they go, oh, we never really thought about that. It's like, go out and buy yourself some, strappers or, bungee cords or something and figure out how that's supposed to stay on the bed. And then you go off to hire the specialist. All right, we've solved these problems. We filed a provisional patent application. Here, Mr. Prototype Guy, the rapid prototypes that, you can do for that first round are critical. So once they get to Noah, what are you, are you using the rapid prototype machine? What are you doing for that first proof of concept prototype? Explain what that exactly means to our listeners.
Well, one of the benefits of having done this a long time is I actually have a lot of arrows in my quiver of all sorts of different processes to use. And that, there are different approaches that are appropriate for different things. And rapid prototyping is great. There are multiple types of rapid prototyping. If I can use that, that's generally a go-to for certain things. There are certain things that cannot be 3D printed or laser stereolithography made, and I have to go into machining. Or again, if we're early enough along, let me say that again. If we're early enough along, I might just use some shop tools and some plywood or whatever it is to get that to learn what we don't know. So a lot of people have read articles about rapid prototyping. They do think that's the panacea for everything. I generally find it's just one element of a much broader picture of prototyping. And really, I look at that stage of prototyping as almost hands-on engineering. Like your example with how do you fix it to the bed, sometimes you don't even know what problems you have to solve until you start pulling something into the real world. And that's where we, again, try to spend as little money as early as possible to learn as much as you can. There'll be plenty of opportunity later on to get that really fancy prototype made, and that's where I'm going to go. Now, I might cast it out of plastic. I might make these rubber molds. I might do all sorts of really sophisticated things, but we don't want to start there because that's expensive.
Well, it can be. And so, that's why I tell so many inventors, it's like, do what you can on your own to give you an idea of how it's going to work. Is it going to work? One of the things I always tell inventors is like, get that comprehensive search done, because once you get the information back and you say, oh, mine's kind of like this, but it's different because, well, if you've got then drawings from a search that's been done and you can look at it, it's a lot easier then to start making, and playing around with that first prototype. But it also makes a difference then when they take it to you and you can say, okay, here's the things that are in the same ballpark, but you can't read the inventor's mind.
Sure.
So if you're looking at other drawings and you're looking at basically video or pictures of their prototype, because let's face it, you're not always working with people who live around the corner. So sometimes it's online and everything, having the conversation. But, you can learn a lot from other drawings and other things that are out there.
Sure. And sometimes I just have to make that first prototype knowing it's wrong, knowing it's not what the inventor has in mind, just to get them to respond so I can learn what they have in mind. Sometimes it's just, that's the only way to communicate these things.
I know I had an inventor. It's like, well, he just went and bought, types off of the shelf. And I said, well, for the first one, isn't it less expensive to buy parts and take them apart and put it back together the way you want it done than it is to start from scratch and charge you then thousands of dollars? It's like, oh, well, I never really thought about it from that point of view. It's like, right now we're saving money. Yep. And, if you're just crazy about spending that money, let me help you out. But in the time, if you've got to be frugal, let's be frugal and get it done.
Yeah, stock traders would say keep some powder dry because you're going to need it later.
I know. It's like, squeeze those pennies now because there's certainly going to be lots of ways that you can spend them later. And the hard thing for me is when somebody calls and says, well, I'm out of money, but I need to get this prototype done. It's like, I don't know what's going to happen with that one because I'm certainly not able to solve that problem for you. And it's like, oh, well, I spent, this much money getting a business plan done, but you don't have a business yet. Let's get the prototype done first so that we know what you've got.
Try that at the steak restaurant. I'm out of money, but I really want a steak.
Yeah, no kidding. So everyone, if you are out there and inventors, everybody knows somebody who would like to be an inventor. We do the inventor roundtable meetings. They are free, so someone can just go in and log in. The last time we did these, we had almost 20 people from all segment of America joining us to ask questions and to find out what's going on and what are the steps. So stick with us. We are going to be back with Ian Osborn. He's got several products in the marketplace, and he is always updating his prototypes, even when the product is in the marketplace. And we're going to find out how that has worked for him. So stick with us, everybody. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us for this segment of Invent America. And this segment is sponsored by Bond Products. It is a DIY carpet binding product. There is only one InstaBind. All right, bondproducts.com is where you would find it. It will help you fix any carpet that is starting to come up, get in the way, be detached, rug endings where they might get frayed. This is the perfect product to fix that. Bondproducts.com. I love this product. So my guest this afternoon is Ian Osborn. I've known Ian, 15 years or longer?
Or longer.
Gone through lots of different prototype stages on different types of products. The one you are working on and looking to license now is a golf product, but your earlier technology played into this, correct?
Correct.
All right. So thank you so much for being with us this afternoon. Tell our listeners about your golf product. It is night golf at its ultimate.
So our night golf product is night golf systems. And what we've done is we've taken standard glow-in-the-dark golf balls and we have designed a enclosure system that allows us to charge those golf balls in rapid succession at less than 90 seconds. And the balls will stay glowing for better than 12 to 14 hours after the fact. So
wow.
We're literally supercharging the golf balls past their excitation point. And when you open up the container and you look at the balls, it has that iridescent glow that looks very futuristic and sci-fi because it has gone past the point of a standard charge.
November 21st,
technology
Kirby Center, Wilkes-Barre, featuring the platinum.
Well, getting it out of your head into something three-dimensional is something that you are very good at. Got a rapid prototype in the garage. And you've helped other inventors before get from that just
best of
basic
do-wop,
duct tape
Saturday,
cardboard
November
to something that's
21st,
actually
Kirby
more
Center.
along the line of proof of concept. But talk about how that starts.
I take my process of what I do in my head and I ask key trigger questions from clients, trying to get what's in their head to understand it, how I can see it in my head and envision it. And usually within, a minute or two, I can literally start relaying with a customer that, okay, this is what I'm picturing that you're asking for. And sometimes I'll sketch it out on paper and draw it out. And once we have a similarity of what they're wanting that they see in their head, and then I put it in mine and then come up with multiple solutions. Now, if they have a prototype, I'll take their prototype, whether it be, paper, sticks, pipe cleaners, as you said before. I will take that and I will formulate it in my head and look at the different ways it can be done in different materials. And based on that and my background, I will then turn around and make a sketch or do a three-dimensional drawing for the client and say, okay, this is what I envision is as close to what you're looking for. And then based on that, I'll either run it through one of my industrial machines and produce a prototype for them so that we can be on the same page, and then I can make tweaks from there.
Well, it's amazing how Americans and, people everywhere invent. You're out in the field, your tractor breaks, and boy, you would better be able to, get it back together. And, wagon trains, if you couldn't fix it, you just were going to do, you're building your cabin right there where the wagon broke down because you weren't going to get any further. And, if they couldn't fix the ship when they were coming over, it was not a pleasant ending. Well, Americans are notorious for being able to, create the product they want in their backyard or their garage because they need it not next week, they need it right now. And I love it when we get going on that stuff. But your night golf is taking off on the technology from your LED lights that you put into these big stadiums and parking lots, correct?
Correct. Right. I'm taking a proprietary blend of light in order to excite the golf balls to a specific range that is not like a typical flashlight or the sun. So we're able to produce a brighter, longer lasting product of the golf ball so that it literally will glow more than 1 hour or 10 minutes, which a lot of the things that I saw out on the market were very inadequate. And so my process was, how can I make this more viable for a golf course and also just a private user, but also for golf courses to be able to utilize it on their golf courses in mass form. So hence the idea of Not Golf Systems came about, being able to build, several entities, machines that basically take from 1 to 3,000 golf balls and can charge them all simultaneously in under 90 seconds flat. It was a pretty hefty feat, but it was accomplished, and we've got multiple machines out on the market, and they are just blowing people's eyes.
So you've technically been able to put the sun in a box.
Correct. Yep.
Excellent. Good job. How much did that patent cost you to get that sun in the box? So, don't we wish it would have been that easy? So you do a lot of your manufacturing in California?
Actually, manufacture in Colorado.
Oh, all right. Excellent. Good for you. And so the LED lights that you put into a stadium, tell our listeners about that, because I think that's just fascinating as well.
So we're taking, one of the top 5 manufacturers of LED chipsets, and through a proprietary design of heat sinks that are not normal, because we are going for a unique look for car dealerships. We've produced unique looking structures of lights for them that are like no other lights out there. I don't like the plain square box or round light fixture. We do it differently.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, Wild Ideas Light Co. is where you would go to look up some of the different products that Ian has invented and has in the marketplace. And Ian, that is the correct website, right? wildideaslightco.com?
Correct. Yep.
All right. And so you want to learn more about the high-tech LED lighting and the sun in the box. Go ahead and take a look at Wild Ideas Light Co. Stick with us, everyone. We have got another inventor coming up that has got some very cool new products and is more than happy to kind of walk through some of that prototyping stage with you as well. In the meantime, if you know anybody out there who's got a project they are working on that would fall into that innovation category, and they need a good service provider, we've got Noah at Product Quickstart, who is a great prototyper manufacturer. We have got good registered patent attorneys. And you know what? We can get you some information on that R&D tax credit and packaging and anything else that you might need as an inventor. We have got the service provider who is going to help you. So stick with us, everybody. We will be right back.
Tired of struggling just for your customers to notice you? Your business needs Constant Contact. Constant Contact's award-winning marketing platform has helped millions of small businesses stand out, stay top of mind, and see big results. With powerful tools like email, SMS, social media, and events, you'll say the right thing at the right time to sell more, raise more, and fast-track growth. Plus, everything's backed by Constant Contact's expert live customer support. So get going and growing with Constant Contact today. Try it free at ConstantContact.com.
everyone. Thank you so much for being with us for this segment of Invent America. And it is because we invent in this country and file the intellectual property and get the prototypes made and go to a trade show. So our sponsor for this segment is ASD Market Week, and we are very grateful to have them as a sponsor. And it is the best show in America for consumer products. So ASD Market Week, we are very grateful. This segment, we are going to do something a little bit different. You know, we're always innovating, right? So we are going to let our inventor, Ian, ask Noah, our products manufacturer, prototype master, to answer the question. So Ian, what is it that you wanted to check in with Noah?
Actually, what I want to do is I want to key in on several things that Noah was pointed out in his, section, that, the difference between the proof of concept prototype and the manufacturing prototype, although they're ideally the same thing from the standpoint of a product outline, the main difference that he was trying to get people to understand was that when you have a prototype and the client looks at it, great, hey, yeah, that's exactly what I want. But then the issue comes back from the Noah looks at it from a standpoint of, okay, how do we manufacture this in a final product, even though the prototype, we can reproduce it over and over again. The issue is that manufacturing now becomes the number one entity for that product to be able to hit the marketplace. So I think one of the things that Noah was trying to get people to understand was that although they're in a sense the same, they're really not, but they're so close. Manufacturing comes down to the point of what is the most viable entity to be able to make that product, make it for a good price point, make it, the view of it, the texture of it. There are so many things that people don't realize that what Noah and I do is we take that concept. Yeah, it might be a rough concept, polished wood, but is that what the client wants or is that what the public wants? So either there are focus groups out there that will then look at the products and say, oh, yeah, if it had a little bit of texture to it, it would be easier to use or it would look better. That's one of the things that we look at. And that was what Noah was pointing out, but in a different wording. That there in itself makes it important. And that's part of the stages and i.e. the feedback that we get. And I think that Noah can point out that all of this is the advice that we can give the client, but we also have to need to listen to the client at the same time so that we can formulate something that they can look at and go, oh, I never thought of it that way. Maybe it would work better. That's where Noah and I come in. And I think, Noah, you might be able to agree or put a little bit more emphasis on some of the stuff.
Sure. So there's a lot to unwrap there. I'm going to start with one of the last things you said first and work backwards. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. It is important for the product developer. In my case, I'm a designer, an engineer, and prototyper and manufacturing coordinator. So I kind of help people through the whole process. But it is very important for me to listen to what the client's trying to do. But that's also a two-way street. It's also important for the client to listen to what I or you have to say, because at the end of the day, I'm here to provide the best advice I can. And if you disagree with me, that's okay. But, the laws of physics and economics are what they are. I can't change those. Now, we can disagree on should it be red or blue. That's fine. That's your call. At the end of the day, how big it should be, that's your call as a client. But you can't tell me that, it's a $10, it's got to be made for $10 when you've got $30 worth of materials in there. There's only so much I can do with that. So Working back to the beginning, there are different levels of prototype. And the way I look at it is, actually, I don't even want to say that. It's really more of a continuum of prototyping throughout the process. And as we move through, it's about learning what we don't know. At the first stage, I don't really need to learn, should it be a really fine texture or should it be a really smooth texture or should it be a rough texture? That's easy. We'll figure that out later on. I need to learn, is it too big? Is it even going to do what you think the physics say it's going to do? So again, we'll go back to those rough prototypes and then we work all the way through. Ultimately, we do get to this prototype that should reflect factory production methodology. Now, it may not be made exactly the way the factory production methodology will be made, because we're not going to go out and buy a $5,000 mold to injection mold something on a prototype typically. But we need to reflect that so that that prototype you're showing at a trade show or you're further evaluating, it's 99% the same as what's going to come off that factory assembly line.
Yep.
A friend of mine that I worked with a long time ago, more talking about design, but also really relates to the rapid prototyping and prototyping in general. She said that you can draw unicorns all day long, but that doesn't mean you can make one. And I think a lot of people look at 3D printing as, oh, I 3D printed it, so that means I've got to be able to manufacture it, right? Well, no, because in 3D printing, you don't have a lot of rules you have to follow. You can 3D print a lot of shapes that you would never be able to mass produce. So yeah, if you want to 3D print every one, they're all going to cost $20 a piece or $10 a piece. We could do that. And I actually have clients that's their business. They do 3D print their entire product line, and that works in their business, their niche, their market. Most of the time, we've got to get it to the point where a factory is producing 3,000 of these at a time, 5,000 of these at a time, 1,000 of these at a time. Just depends on what it is, and without following those manufacturing rules for injection molding or making sure assembly's easy and reasonable, or sheet metal bending, all the different rules that have to go into it, we never get to that mass production level. So, yeah, you can 3D print a unicorn, but you can't actually manufacture one. So
I want to add in here a couple of parameters for our listeners too. Is that when it comes to pricing, the consumer is the determiner. All right, because I get inventors that say, well, yeah, all right, so the average product in this category is $10, but I'm going to charge $25 for mine. You might want to charge $25 for mine. It doesn't mean anybody's going to buy it at $25. They're going to go for, the one that does, close to it, but, is cheaper. That tends to be our nature. We look at pricing. So when we say, all right, this needs to be in a $10 to $12 category, the prototype person, Noah, is going to say, okay, in this category, these types of materials, this is what we're shooting for. And then you help them redesign. That's why I always say, inventor, pay attention to what the prototype person, is doing, because you may need to adjust some of your intellectual property, even though it should be broad enough to cover minor adjustments. You might have something that in order to get that product into the marketplace is a major shift simply because of the cost. The other thing I get inventors to do is, well, I'm going to go to China and do the manufacturing myself. Nope. Don't go there. You want to go to China on vacation? Hire, a tour guide. But when it comes to getting your manufacturing done, hire Noah.
Yeah, I meet people that have just gone to Alibaba and found a factory. I met dozens of people that have done that. Maybe one or two actually turned out the way they wanted it to. So it can be very dangerous. And frankly, China almost has, even worse than us in the South, they have what you might call a good old boy system that you have to have relationships. So if you're just coming in from, an email through Alibaba, they don't know you. You don't know them. You don't know if it's a real factory. You don't know if it's some guy in a garage pretending to be a factory. You don't know if there's cats and dogs running around the factory. You don't know anything. I don't want to paint a bad picture of China. There are wonderful factories in China. There's some that are fantastic, extremely high tech. But there's a whole gamut. It ranges from the guy in a garage all the way to that company that's got 8,000 employees. Yeah. Frankly, neither of those are a good fit for you as an inventor entrepreneur most of the time. So finding that right match is important.
Yeah, 22 years ago when I started my business, I manufactured products in China. For the first year and a half, every time a container would come in, I would spend half of my time fixing the electronics that came in from China, which was very, frustrating for me. So my profit margin went from what I wanted down to barely making anything. And so we decided that we were going to see if we can go old school and manufacture the product in the United States. So we turned to contract manufacturing, which really wasn't back in the day, 22 years ago. People were like, no, we just do a job and that's all we do. So I was able to go to small towns and work with small machine shops and give them small contracts, multiple machine shops. So I'd always have more than one source of the product to be manufactured. That allowed me to get my product turned around and manufactured in the United States. And by the time I stopped production in China after the second year, my product was made for the last 20 years, has been made in the United States. I am not losing any money. I'm making the same profit, if not more, because of the way that I went about that process. And again, like Noah said, China has some great products and great manufacturing companies out there. What I was doing was so specialized, it was very hard for them to accomplish it 100% every time.
Okay.
But that's not me. That's everybody else.
I know that. You are the perfect American because you were determined to solve your problem right here. And with that, everyone, all right, we are going to take a quick break. break, pay some bills, and we will wrap this up with Noah in just a few seconds. Take care, everybody, and stick with us as we wrap up prototyping and the challenges. Thank you so much as we wrap up this segment of Invent America for being with us so we can, finish up our conversation on the challenges of prototyping. I think for a lot of inventors, have idea, file patent, make money is the business plan that a lot of them start out with and then realize about the time they get through first prototype stage that there's more prototype stages. And holy cow, then when they get to marketing, that's a whole nother cranky animal for the inventors. But, the prototyping stage, a lot of them don't realize that, you get a really cool prototype now, the proof of concept, you can see exactly how it works. But that's not how it's going to be manufactured because the way your prototype works doesn't work so much for manufacturing to make it fit into that sweet spot of what price the consumer will pay for it. And so for a lot of inventors, that's a very difficult stage to be in. So Noah, how do you work someone through that? How do you work to prepare them to understand what's coming? And then how do you get them to make that leap when they're there?
Wow. You told me these were going to be easy questions. It depends on the person, and sometimes I feel like I do a lot of counseling in addition to design, engineering, and prototyping work. What I like to do is when I meet a client the first time, I have a very long talk with them. I try to learn as much as I can about what they're trying to do. And then I put together a scope that's just for them because, there are companies out there that'll try to template you into a project that's their way rather than what's right for you and your product. So I treat everything individually. And I go back to those clients with what I call a discussion document, which is really just a fancy way of saying, I'm going to send them an email with bullet points. I'm going to divide it into phases and give them, hey, here's what this is going to cost. And here's what happens here, and et cetera. And I call it a discussion document because even though we may have had a great conversation, I might have missed something or I might put something in there that they don't really need. And at the end of the day, I want to make sure I'm doing the project they need. I don't want them, they're bootstrapping it because they're startups, they're inventors. I don't want them paying me to do stuff that doesn't need to get done. But I want to make sure everything that does need to happen happens. So through that process, I do a lot of education about, what is my typical phases are design, development, direction. We're going to design out all on the computer, maybe do a few rough prototypes just to confirm that this direction is solid. That's very interactive, show them a lot of options, work with them to pick the right one, refine it, et cetera. My second phase, which is where this comes in that I really have to do some education about typically, is what I call the hands-on engineering phase. This is where we're going to make prototypes. We're going to break them. We're going to make more. We're going to break them. We're going to keep doing that until we learn everything that we couldn't learn on the computer, and we roll all that back into our design. Then, of course, our third phase is where I do all the heavy lifting to get it detailed for manufacturer readiness. Right. But it's really an education process. I mean, I've learned that over the years that
it is. And it makes, for a lot of the inventors that go to ASD Market Week with us, a good number of them are going with just that fairly early stage, not the duct tape and cardboard prototype, but certainly the proof of concept prototype. And they learn a lot. They can ask a lot of questions. People give them feedback on the way something is working. So then when they go back for that next stage of prototyping, say, these were some of the questions that we ran into at the trade show. It would be better if it were, did this. Let's add this part to it. And so you worked with inventors. I know you worked with inventors, that came back from the show last year that said, let's make these improvements. Let's do it this way. And for a lot of them, getting that feedback from professionals in that industry makes a huge difference.
Oh, absolutely. That's extremely valuable. And that's something you want to learn now before we make 5,000 of these. If you learn it after you get 5,000 on the market, well, you've already paid for 5,000 units. You can't fix that then. So you can do a next generation. That's fine. The more we can learn, I often say prototypes are about learning what we don't know. And in that case, it's not just whether it works or not. It's also whether it works for the market, for the consumer, et cetera, from the standpoint of, is this something someone wants to buy? Is it going to be at the right price for the problem we're solving for them? I meet people, sometimes they've got a $100 solution for a $5 problem, and that doesn't work, So all those other points of view, a prototype and demonstrating that with people, it can help you learn those things that you don't already know. And then we can make adjustments. We can fix the plan and move forward.
Absolutely. And all right, so, we've kind of talked through this, but I get inventors that want me to help them license their product based on renderings rather than prototypes. And, I always tell them, I'm sorry, but if that's not the way it works, you can do renderings of life on Mars. It doesn't mean that there is life on Mars. And it's like, you can do renderings of me hanging from this tree outside my deck. Not going to happen. And so the proof of concept prototype is a critical stage in the evolution of a product.
Yeah, I would say your potential success rate is, it's an order of magnitude. It's tenfold more likely if you have a prototype you can demonstrate. Now, there are some inventions you really can't demonstrate as well with a prototype. I did a project one time for a surgical thing that's going to be like tiny. It's going to be like 3 millimeters long. We still made a prototype of it, but a much bigger scale version just to demonstrate it. But it couldn't demonstrate everything that product did. So some renderings did come into play. And sometimes you partner those things together. You prototype what you can. Hey, it's ugly. It does what it's supposed to do. But then we got this really pretty picture of this is what it's going to look like when it's all done. That's okay. But you really need something physical.
You really do. It's very difficult to present something at a show that people can't touch, push, make it work. Now, we had a lady last year that went, and she had it didn't work. It didn't work. She did not know that it didn't work until people tried it, and it didn't work. And she goes, oh, I need to redesign this one. Yes, you do. And then, but she was thrilled with the fact that so many people tried it. They liked the basic concept and gave her ideas on how to make it work better. And
it's about learning what you don't know. And that's something she didn't know. And that prototype helped her learn that.
And the funny thing is like, your family is not the right, they're not the right ones to ask because they love you and they're going to say, oh, this is really cool. No, not so much. You need to ask the professionals in the field who would be selling it. They're going to give you ideas about manufacturing, about the way it works, about packaging, and about cost. And with all of that, I'm talking faster because we are wrapping up this episode of Invent America. Noah, thank you so much for being with us. And again, if you know anybody out there who's got an idea, working on a product, have them get in touch. I do answer my phone and I do return my emails. Thanks everyone for joining us today. We will be back next week with more stories on getting products from mind to market. We will have new inventors and industry experts. So join us and have a wonderful week.